Welcome to the History of the Space Between, Part 1. This is a 3-part series with each episode covering a different era of the game's history. Era 1 spans from TSB's earliest conception all the way to around December 2023. It all started in fall of 2022. One of my friends at school came up to me and said, "Hey, we should make a video game sometime. That'd be pretty cool." I was like, "Oh yeah, that'd be fun. What were you thinking for it?" And he said he wanted something similar to the Backrooms, kind of inspired by that. It was going to be set in a forest, and it would be less offensive and combat related, more so defense and protecting yourself from the various enemies in the forest. There was going to be monster repellent spray, campfires, and stuff like that. We were even going to have a building system. A few days after that, however, he realized that he did not have a PC to make a game, so he kind of just kept the idea in his back pocket for a while. For me, on the other hand, I was obsessed with the idea of making a game. I really wanted to have an excuse to just go crazy composing songs for it, coming up with ideas, because it was a really cool concept to me. So to start, we knew we wanted it to be inspired by the Backrooms, like I said. So in order to get some information, I looked up things about the Backrooms, and this led me to the Backrooms Wiki. Now there's several of these, but this one I found has so many different levels that everyone just contributes to, and it just becomes canon lore. It was really cool, and I just got absorbed in it for like a week and a half, if not longer. I was just reading all the different articles, seeing how the rooms worked, how you would get from level to level. It was really cool, and it served as a basis for everything about the game so far. With the idea of a Backrooms-inspired game in mind, I figured the first thing we should try to compose was a menu theme. So I started off with this simple song that just used a piano and some static noises called Those Old Keys. It went through a couple changes, such as slowing it down, making the piano sound deeper and darker, and also adding just a little more sounds. But it stayed relatively the same for a long time. Around this time as well, I decided to get the first level theme made. The first place you're going to end up when you enter the game. I figured it'd be good to get that composing style down, set the scene for how the rest of the game is going to seem, and the vibe of it in general. So this was, again, a very simple song called No One's Here. It was meant to sound empty and lonely. I didn't really have an idea of where it would be yet. It was just this lonely sounding song with a saw, and here it is. And there were a couple other songs I made at this time as well, but they aren't really important yet. After I had composed these songs, got hyperfixated on the Backrooms wiki for a week and a half, and we had made this idea document that literally just said forest game, Backrooms. It just kind of sat there for a long time. Now, around the same time, I was attending an after-school video game design class. It was really cool. I got to learn how to make things in Unity and C#. It was awesome. I got to use Blender as well and figure out how to do animations and 3D modeling. It was really informative, and I had a lot of fun making things there. However, come August 2023, at the end of the summer, when it was time to sign up for that after-school game design course again, I was disappointed to learn that they were no longer offering game design as a course that you could take. So I thought, well, I still want to learn how to make a game. So what better way than just making a game. So I called up the friend who had originally had the idea, and I said, hey, remember how we were going to make that game? He goes, yeah, I remember. What about it? I'm like, well, what if we did it now? He came over to my house, and we just started thinking about different ideas that we could do for a game. You know, we looked at our original forest defensive spray building system document, and we said, you know, this doesn't look fun. This seems like a boring game. It's not exciting enough. People aren't going to want to play it. So we decided at first we should get down the basic idea of the game, how the world works, what it's about. We decided it would follow this 15, 16-year-old protagonist who clipped through the floor and fell into this backrooms type area. We didn't have a name for it yet, and we didn't know much else other than that, but we knew we wanted to play off the theory of atoms going through each other, because it sounded really cool to me. You know the theory that if you hit your hand on the table enough, the atoms could line up perfectly, and your hand would just go straight through the table, but it's a really small chance. I don't think it's a real scientific theory that can actually happen, but the idea is cool, and it makes for a great game concept. So we wanted the game to be about this realm between the atoms of our universe. And we thought, well, if people can clip through to this area, why can't other things? Why can't items, like things, objects in the real world? That's where all your missing pen caps and spare socks went. That's where they ended up. They fell into this area, this secret realm that nobody knows about. But then we decided to think even bigger. If people and things can fall in, why can't places? And that's how the levels are there. That was it. That was the idea. We knew we were onto something there, so we thought, well, what if this city fell in and it was all abandoned? You know, some sort of lonely city. And that's what we ended up calling the first level. I realized that the idea from the No One's Here song fit perfectly with that. It's empty, it's rainy, and it's just quiet and kind of ominous and eerie, you know? After coming up with all those ideas, we got kind of hungry, so we decided to walk over to Wendy's. Now, on the way there, we realized, we should probably start thinking about the first boss if we're going to be making a game, and we already know the first level and the basic premise. So what could the first boss be? We had kind of hit a wall. We couldn't come up with anything, and as we were passing this little pocket of trees, we looked in it, and we saw a packet of crackers that had been half-eaten, and then a bunch of broken beer bottles. We saw that and we said, it looks like there was some sort of drunk homeless man there. And then we turned to each other. It was like a cartoon. We just turned to each other and we knew that was it. That was the boss. Some sort of drunk homeless man. It was a really funny idea to us, but I knew we could still make it a cool boss fight. Make it something good and something fun to play. As we were walking back, I figured, you know, it's been almost a year since I last composed a song for this, and those weren't even composed for this. So what if I make a song now for that drunk homeless man? So I started with a bass line, added some weird warbly chords to make it sound kind of drunk, and then I added this really cool pulsing alarm that turns into the lead of the song. I was pretty happy with the way it was turning out so far. Once we got back, we figured we could use some concept art. So, my friend got to work drawing this drunk homeless man, and I'll let you decide what you think about it. I'm just gonna let you look at it for a second. Okay, that's enough. Now that we had the basic idea, concept art, and even a song for this boss, we needed a name. We were trying to think of synonyms for drunk fighter, because drunk fighter just sounds weird. So we were thinking about synonyms for drunk, and we ended up with buzzed. And for fighter, brawler, and that's how the Buzzed Brawler, the first boss, was born. After that was done, we kind of let the idea of the Buzzed Brawler sit for a while, and I started actually coding a game. It was really cool to be able to make my own thing for the first time, not following some sort of game design class tutorial, not looking up something on YouTube, not making something in Scratch. This was an actual real game that I was able to make for myself. It was really cool. Now, it was around this time that school was starting again, and in the grade that I was entering, we had to make a big project. It could be whatever you want as long as you can write enough about it. It has to be something you can spend at least 25 hours working on, and you have to write this big old paper with these 3 main sections on it. Since it could be anything, and I was already starting to make a game, I figured, well, let's make it this game. Let's make my project into this game. And with this new motivation, because now I was doing it for this project, I kept coding the game. So now I'll run through a really short summary of some of the most important beta versions so far, just in this era, what happened, the milestones of it. So beta 1.0 was the first ever version. I posted it to the developer server we had for the game. Beta 1.0 added player, buildings, outer walls, and movement system. You were a square. You could move around. You were a moving square. It was monumental, though. This was my game that I made. This was really cool to me because it was something that I was able to achieve without copious amounts of Googling. In beta 1.1.2, I added a pretty bad attack system. You could just attack in the way the player was moving, which kind of got finicky and weird eventually. So in beta 1.1.3, I added a cool directional attack system like this. By beta 1.2, I had added a shadow enemy and a training dummy. The dummy was just to test your attack ability, and the enemy would chase you. He had some weird glitches at first where he could phase through walls. He could not die at one point, but we got it all fixed. The next important version was beta 1.3. Remember those songs I talked about earlier? Those Old Keys and No One's Here? It was finally time for them to have a purpose after almost a year of them just sitting and doing nothing. On August 20th, I added beta 1.3, added the Those Old Keys song as the menu theme, and No One's Here as the Lonely City main theme. They would just play in the game in loop. And at the time, we had a beautifully rendered title screen that said Nameless Backrooms Game, because at the time, we still didn't have a name. This was rendered by yours truly, and I will take any compliments in the comments below.
This was placeholder art. It's not supposed to be good.
Then came beta 1.4.1, the next important version. At this point, we had come up with a name for the game. If it's about this space between the atoms of our world, why not just name it that? The Space Between. It's got this cool, mysterious sounding, almost vague name. So I changed the title screen, still pretty bad quality, but at least it's named now. And I also added the practice room and a corresponding song. It was a remix of the Lonely City theme. The practice room had the dummy and the shadow enemy. You could fight them and just learn how the combat system worked. Simple enough. But this version brought about the infamous death and checkpoint glitches. I spent so long trying to figure these out, so much Googling, so many headaches, that I gave up for a solid 2 months. 1.4.1 came out September 17th, and 1.5.1, where I finally fixed everything, came out November 23rd. There were so many problems, and you can even see it on the GitHub repository. Issue: player can't respawn. Player checkpoints not working. Player teleporting when using checkpoints. Player doesn't stay dead. Death animation doesn't play. There was just so much that resulted as a problem from these simple checkpoints and doors that I had added, that it was just so confusing, and I gave up for a solid 2 months. November is where it kind of stopped for the year. Once I fixed all those bugs, finally got them all done after procrastinating for a month and a half, I got them all done and was really burnt out with the Space Between. I didn't want to keep working on it because if I added new features, it would just mean more bugs. I didn't want to have to go through that copious amounts of Googling and splitting headaches again. And around this time, I finally started inviting other people that I knew to the Space Between server to help with streamlining the creative process of it. So the first person I invited was Kiika, who Eventually ended up doing some enemy concepts, but we'll get more into that in the next one. Speaking of the next one, that's where this one ends. That's basically all that happened from the game's earliest conception until November, December 2023. Next episode will cover from the start of 2024 to the school exhibition demo, because like I said, I was making this for a school project. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.